Okay. I'm still going to have to use that hammerstone for abrading. I'll just use this one. The pink granite from Central Texas. See, my preforms, this preform looks a little different than the other preforms. You can see a few similarities, but on the real ones, you don't find areas like this. All the edges are sinewy, except for that one spot there, I guess. I think this is a white chert material. It's not this type of material, but the similarities in hammerstone percussion are there. Nice. Very nice. Those make some really nice points. I'd like to send a flake in here, but I'm not sure if there's a platform that I could take advantage of or not yet. I'm going to try to strike here and see. I'll have to prepare that better. Took a little more off than I wanted. There's a strange bulb in there. I think it did earlier with the hammerstone. There was already some cracking in there. I have a bad habit of hitting the same spot over and over. Yeah, this area has a lot of weird texture to it. Probably has some cracks inside the material. So I'm going to try to eliminate as much of that as I can. I'm going to lose some length, but that's okay. Not sure if that's just the way it's fracturing or if that's internal flaws. Sorry if I'm in and out of the frame there. I'm going to work on making this a biface that I can use instead of trying to get long flakes for for bird points. Well, that's not bad. A lot of nice thin flakes off of this material. Pretty soon I'll switch over to copper just so I can control the flaking better so I don't make mistakes. It's a nice little chunk. Maybe a few more flake removals with antler and then I'll switch over to copper. See, it's getting kind of thin now and I've got to be very precise with the strikes. You can see this strike here. It's very common with soft percussion, and I think there are some of the same type of strikes on these real preforms. Like there seems to be one here. Let's see. Right there. Looks like a soft percussion strike. Very similar to this contour, and there's a little bit of crushing going on in there. Same as this here in here, you can barely see it. So this one is probably prepared with soft hammer. You can see jaggedy edges. I don't know if I think I removed all the ones on mine, but you can get a lot of jaggedy edges with a soft hammer. With a hard hammer, most of the time it'll blow those away. Similar kinds of step fracturing. Tip snap. I got one on this one too earlier. Okay, let's see if I can get this down. Yeah, I don't trust myself hitting that with the antler right now, so I'll switch over to copper. Dress up the edges first. Just small flake removals. I like to brush the entire edge, that way I don't have to keep putting the stone down, bringing it back, putting it down, bringing it back for each individual area that I want to abrade. Now if I compare this to one of the other more refined preforms, you can see some similarities where there's dull areas along the edges. It could be from tumbling and recent dings, but it feels slightly ground, just like this feels slightly ground. You've got some very similar step fracturing going on here. And here. See these little step fractures off the edges where I just was brushing with a stone or a abrader, and you get these short little flakes with step terminations. Here, there's one here. This is a snap, pretty good one, but it looks like there were some defects in the stone. These here are large soft hammer, looks like soft hammer flake removals. Oops. Trying to find some similarities on the surface. I don't know if you guys can see any, but you notice these short flakes that terminate abruptly are just trimming flakes. There's some similarity here, but not much. When I make the next biface, there may be some better similarities. Or better opportunities to see some similarities. I'm switching over to copper, so I'm not going to compare it to the actual artifact from this point on. I don't think they used copper. Not for the for this early stage. Maybe for a later stage where just very delicate work was needed. Let's see if I can remove a large flake from here. You never have too many large thin flakes for those little bird points. Sweet. Beautiful material. Couldn't have asked for better. That right there could be a nice blade. I just need to retouch this edge and it could be a nice knife just like that. It almost took off too much mass there. So we're going to take one more off of this edge. Yeah, I'll stop there because I don't want to risk it. I don't want to risk snapping this whole thing. Still a little bit of Cortex remaining. Some boogery areas. There may be some cracks in that Cortex. Maybe a seam in there somewhere, or a crack. Right in there is a strange thing going on. See if I can flake through that. Some of the prettiest material is also some of the most difficult to work with. This is not bad at all. I mean, I was able to get very large flakes off of this. So for the most part, this material is very consistent. I think I'll be able to get a really nice finished point out of it. It's flaking beautifully. Almost makes me want to try a fulsome or something. Not that I can do a fulsome. I could try. Since this is allowing me to do nice long flat flakes. And this is raw stone, so it's, as far as I can tell, it's raw. It doesn't have that nice heat-treated sheen to it, although heat-treated material doesn't always have that sheen or that luster. It feels raw because of the edges. They're nice and strong, whereas a heat-treated stone or glass, you'll be able to, you know, break off the very fine edges with just your finger. These edges feel very stiff, which gives a good indication that it's raw stone. Still some strange fracturing going on there. I've got to start thinking of the overall shape. Excuse me. I think that's the rest of that damaged area, damaged by natural causes, although beating on it with a hammerstone also causes little incipient cracks, or cracks you don't want when you use a hammerstone or any hard hammer percussor. The hard hammer is good at the initial stages when it's big and thick and there's still a lot of mass to remove, but once you get down to the final stages, I mean, brushing like this with a hard hammer stone is fine. It's not going to send in, you know, long cracks into the material. But if I was hitting on this with a hammer stone trying to dry flakes, there is a possibility of sending cracks in. So I never use hard hammer on thin bifaces unless I'm shearing like this or abrading. I just haven't reached that skill level where I know I can hit and send cracks only where I want. I usually end up with a lot of small incipient fractures if I start to drive flakes with a hammerstone on something that thin. And then once it starts in on the edge, you've got to pick it off or remove the entire crack, or if you hit somewhere else, that crack will spread because of the bending stresses. It'll just spread and crack and you know, crack the whole thing in half or something. Let's say that I would hit this platform with a hammerstone and accidentally send a fracture in, you know, perpendicular to the face. It'll start, and then as I'm working on other areas, it'll spread and it'll, you know, go into the body of the piece. But shearing like this won't do much damage. Shearing and abrading like this won't do much damage. It'll send little teeny cracks in here, but not many. And I could take an artificial abrader and do this, the artificial abraders cut the stone better, and they abrade it better, which saves time, but I want to get the feel for this granite. It works pretty good. But that's one thing about abo techniques that requires more energy, more time. It doesn't cut as easily as the artificial stone, but it is effective. It just takes more time. I could probably start to eliminate all of these little fingernail steps by using a soft pad support underneath. So that's what I'll do. Put pressure right underneath where the flake's going to travel, and it helps to eliminate those fingernail steps at the end of, or the termination of the flake. You can see how very thin these are. It wouldn't be possible a lot of times to have such thin flakes like this flake off unless you had some support to remain on the surface. It almost doesn't make sense, you know, support like right there didn't make much difference. It actually, I think, prevented the flake from traveling through this area, but overall support helps to keep the energy going. I'm going to try to power through this area with a very hard strike and some support underneath. See if I can get past all those, or clean off a lot of that step fracturing. I got some of it. I'll have to try again here. I was able to pick off some of that with just a strike on these steps. Side strike or something. I don't know. There's a terminology for striking these steps. One of the telltale signs that the napper's doing that is these dips into the stone, where the flake dips in and just pops out some material when you're doing these side strikes. And they can be little, small. Sometimes you'll see these on real artifacts, but they're not that common. Where the napper took an antler or something and just, either with indirect percussion or with pressure, pushed that off and got a little gouge taken out. But it helps to flatten out the surface so that further flakes can travel more easily. But if it's really irregular like this, I don't know, I may have just dug in too much. We'll see. I'll flatten it out some more by abrading. And I'll take a flake from this platform and try to clean off a lot of that. The platform wasn't strong enough. Let's try this one over here. Again, the platform wasn't strong enough, so it didn't continue. What I mean by that is the surface of the flake, right at the beginning where it needs to be strong, was kind of weak, so it crushed here, and then there wasn't enough force to continue the flake, and most of the force dissipated right in here at the bulb. When the platform is stronger and you hit really hard, it allows you to send more force into the stone. I'm going to strengthen up those platforms. I am using support. My finger was right underneath it like that. The danger is, though, I can cut myself easily. But I supported the end of that flake with that finger. And the hard part's going to be getting past this step fracturing there. I think I can do it. Yeah, I had my finger, it was supporting this part here. So this is the initial flake. Without support, it might have stopped there, but since there was a lot of force behind it, it continued to push the rest of this material. And with support, it was able to continue to travel. So that's pretty nice. This material flakes really well. Even though it's got some imperfections, it just carries a flake really nicely. I think of a good way to approach that. Anyway, I should stop talking so I can just go ahead and get the preform done. Okay, at this point I'm going to stop the video, but in the next part I'm going to dress the edges, do a few more thinning flakes, and the preform will be finished. That was a nice flake there. I'm hoping to get more of this type of flaking on this side.